What we're going to be getting into today is projections, or how to take your power back from yourself and for other people and also the world. So, in the first video, we learned about introjections, and projections, like I mentioned there, sit on top of introjections when it comes to the three different types of shadow. And they don't always sit on top of introjections. Let's be careful there, but 8 or 9 times out of 10 they do. So approach that idea with curiosity. Do not superimpose the fact that there will always be a projection here. A lot of the time there will be, so have that information in your mind, but don't assume it, basically. And again, before we really get into what a projection is, with split ego states, which will be in the next video in this series, they can also hold their own projections. So for those of you who don't know what a split ego state is, they're essentially parts in us that act semi-autonomously. So it's why we can feel so different at work compared to being in a relationship, compared to being in the courtship area of dating, compared to being in a social situation, compared to being playing a sport, right? We can feel really differently because there's different ego states, there's different parts within us that all have their different beliefs and their different ways of thinking. And they can be split from us, or they can act like a unified team. So we have a whole kind of inner democracy here, which can be really, really powerful. But a lot of the time, when it feels like parts are holding you back or pushing you down or actively fighting against you, or you're just really confused, it's because there's a split ego state or a part within you kind of running amok, and they can have their own projections. So a projection is, or the healing process for a projection rather, instead of like an introjection, which is by letting go and giving back, it's re-owning. Why? Because projections are the inverse to an introjection. An introjection is a shadow or an insecurity that was given to us from an event, a place, a person before, and we have created the meaning from that. So the event gave us the meaning, and we've taken that meaning upon ourselves. Because that's not authentically part of who we are, we can then give that back to where it came from. Projection, on the other hand, which is why they're really, really confronting, all shadows are confronting, all insecurities are confronting, but I would say projection definitely takes the cake when it comes to that, is it's because there's actually something in ourselves that we don't want to look at and we don't want to own. So because we don't want to own it, we project it onto others. We'll give an example here. What that is would be, let's say I have an insecurity. I kind of know that I'm being a little bit arrogant. And then when I see somebody being arrogant outside, I'm like, how can this guy be so arrogant? How can she be so arrogant? Fuck that person, right? Basically. Excuse my French. That's a projection. It's actually my own arrogance that I don't like in this situation. But because I don't like it and I don't want to own that, and maybe I feel like I'm a little bit holier than thou, or maybe I feel really vulnerable, owning that, I then project it onto the outside world. And there's 4 different types of projections. There's golden, there's dark. Dark is the one I just talked about. There's complementary, and there's matching. Matching is the one that I just talked about. So we'll go through all of these really, really quickly, or we'll go into them as quick as it needs to go. Golden projection is actually something which isn't talked about too much, but it's something that's super, super real. Like, this happened a lot of the time when I was working in an old company where we were really going deep into holistic relationships. A lot of the times, the guys that we would work with, they would have a projection around beauty. You see? And when you have a projection around beauty, you project all these ideas, usually around value. That beauty means that this person must be more valuable than you a lot of the time. Obviously, there's an introject there that we can look at, like there's some kind of thing around value or worth, but that was one of the big things. And with a golden projection, you're projecting like something good onto somebody else. So you're not like, fuck this person, they're arrogant. You're like, oh wow, they're beautiful. That means they must be really intelligent, or they must be this angel. They must not have anything wrong with them. What that actually is them not owning their own golden, I guess we couldn't call it shadow, their own golden light within them, their attractiveness. Maybe their femininity even, right? Don't get scared by that word. Their sexual prowess, their intelligence, their whatever, right? They weren't owning any of those things around them. and they were just projecting it onto anyone that they saw that looked like that. So then you can re-own that. And then suddenly they have access to all of those different amazing things. Another example of a client that I'm working through right now is he always projects intelligence and kind of know-how and certainty onto other people. And it's funny because he runs a very successful business, or he's been running a very successful business, and he's kind of built the dream life that he wanted to, but he's still giving all of these projections of intelligence, certainty, capableness onto other people, which makes his own view and sense of self very flimsy. However, all of the breakthroughs that we've been having recently has been around that golden projection, and he's actually been re-owning his own light, and suddenly he's becoming more certain. He's feeling his intelligence more. He's doubting himself way less, and therefore he's able to execute much, much better, and also just live a much, much more peaceful life because he's not doubting himself so much. That can be an example of a golden projection. A dark projection, probably what you think of when it comes to shadow work, is disowning our shadow. So if golden is disowning our own intrinsic light, dark shadow or dark projections is disowning our shadow. So that can be, like I just talked about, we have this part which is kind of a little bit arrogant, and we're disowning that because we don't want to look at it, we don't want to work on it, it's very confronting. And then we project arrogance onto somebody else, whether they're being arrogant or not, right? Complementary. This is when somebody is seen to be acting or doing something different to us. E.g., somebody is shy and they see somebody confident, they project ideas of confidence or arrogance onto them. So again, with the arrogance example, if you have a complementary shadow, it can also be, it doesn't have to be dark, that's like a dark complementary shadow. It can also come across in the sense of if you're shy, you can see that somebody is not shy, and then you lavish praise onto them as well. So this is more of like a golden complementary shadow. We're like, oh wow, that person's so amazing, they're so confident, I wish I could be like them. It's a complementary, because it's like a compliment, right? That's a complementary shadow. A matching shadow is actually like the arrogance example that we just used, is when we see that somebody's doing the same as us, like, oh, they're being so loud and obnoxious, you shout in the middle of like a break room, you being loud and obnoxious, right? That's a matching projection. It's when you both have the same behaviors, right? So this is the breakdown of all of the projections you can have. Introjections, they're usually deeper than projections. And they come usually when you re-own a projection that gives you the space and the wherewithal to go deeper into an introjection. But introjection, they don't break down into this many tiers, you know. It's just an insecurity. I believe this because this thing happened to me, right? Whereas projections, as you can see, they're much, much more detailed. However, I would say, despite them being the most confronting for a lot of people, these are actually the easiest ones to heal. Because once you see that you're projecting, automatically like 80% of the work of re-owning is done, even if you're a complete beginner. If you're more advanced, it's usually as soon as you see that you're projecting, the re-owning happens in an instant. And then you can keep on working and see there's an introject there or a split ego state there. And I go into much, much detail in my 3-hour, The Most Practical Guides to Shadow Work on the Internet, originally done for one-on-one clients. It's a live stream. It has the whole system that I work with clients, all given to you. So go ahead, download it. It will change your life when it comes to healing unconscious beliefs and rewiring shadows. I can't recommend it enough. Otherwise, this projection cheat sheet is also in the description below, alongside The Most Practical Guide to Shadow Work in the Internet. And I will see you for the video on split ego states.